So in today's video, I'd like to talk about the Orange Couch conversation with Nellie and my response to it. So in the conversation with Nellie, we learned that Nellie went through this period where she actually really loved her partner and felt really supported by him, and their relationship went really well. And then it kind of devolved into this Jekyll and Hyde situation where her partner became somebody that she really didn't recognize and was physically abusive, verbally abusive. Then they had a child and things got better for a little while until eventually her partner started cheating on her, lying to her, drinking a bunch, having a bunch of physical behaviors towards her, and really becoming super controlling. Nellie tried to escape, and she was brought back in by her partner into this situation where he began pressuring her for sex and using his own suicide and death, threatening that he was going to hurt himself in order to control her again. I wanted to talk about this because I recently read a book by Lundy Bancroft called Why Does He Do That?, which is all about partner abuse and domestic violence. And it's something that I really recommend anybody who is dealing with this situation or who just wants to become more aware of the warning signs for somebody who could act this way to read. It's a really, really interesting book and a really, I think, good look at the dangers of this kind of abusive relationship and the kind of toll it can take on someone. So looking at that book and looking at what Nellie was talking about, I think there's a few things to discuss. So the first is, when Nellie first started dating her partner, she was pretty happy and it was a really good relationship. And then eventually it turned into something a lot different. And she started to say like, oh, he was a totally different person. Well, in the book, Bancroft talks about this issue. He says that usually there will be this kind of honeymoon period where you'll start off and they'll be very doting, they'll be very attentive, and it'll be a really good relationship, seemingly. But there are a few things, and then all of a sudden they can change, and it seems very dramatic at the time, but there are actually a few things that you can watch out for. So I'm going to go over those things very quickly. Those things are, so a few warning signs that Bancroft talks about are, first, he speaks disrespectfully about former partners. So especially when he talks about former partners, he talks about them early on in your dating relationship, and he talks about the other women as in a really negative way, in a really harmful way, and he is super disrespectful towards them. He also mentions that he may mention in the past that women have found him to be abusive, and you may say, he may try to override this and say that these women are crazy or they were actually abusive towards him. And while in some cases that may be true, it's much more likely that he's simply trying to wash over the fact that he was abusive in the past in a way that was very harmful and will likely repeat itself in your relationship. So it's something to watch out for. Again, Nellie didn't mention any of these things specifically in the video, but I just wanted to give these warning signs for anybody who's interested. The next thing is to watch for disrespect. Disrespect, Lundy says, is the soil in which abuse grows. It is a sign that the perpetrator of abuse is self-centered and has a negative view towards you and your worth as a human being, which then allows in his own mind him to perpetrate these acts of abuse towards you and towards others. So it's something to watch out for. If he speaks disrespectfully about past partners, that's a warning sign, but also about you in little small ways. It doesn't have to be big, grandiose ways, but these can add up over time to make him to kind of give him more justification in his own mind to commit even more dangerous acts of abuse towards you that are not emotional but could be physical. Number 3 is he is controlling. So in Nellie's case, this man was controlling physically. He was physically abusive, but in other videos that I've seen in this Orange Couch Conversation series, the man can be controlling in a number of different ways. And I can talk about that in other videos, but oftentimes men can be abusive in the way that they limit where you go or limit who you are able to be in contact with, friends, family, etc. And that kind of controlling nature is just one small sign leading up to even more dangerous abuse later on. The next thing to watch out for is possessiveness. So the abusive partner is possessive of you. He's possessive of your time, of your information, what you can say and can't say, and is very jealous as well. Not all jealousy is a sign of abuse, of course. This is a natural emotional response that people can have, but there are degrees. And I think that especially possessiveness, like you are mine, your time is mine, your body is mine, all of these are signs that abuse may come in the future. And you can see that possessiveness later on in the relationship with Nellie when the abuser wants her to have sex with him. She says no, and he begins to become very angry and violent. The next thing is nothing is ever the abuser's fault. The abuser will blame others for everything, and every problem in his life is somebody else's fault. So if you are with somebody or have interest in somebody who takes that kind of approach to life, then this is a sign that this person may take the opportunity to blame you in your relationship for any of his or her problems. So it's something to watch out for as a sign of abuse in the future. The next thing is that he is self-centered. So this self-centeredness, this kind of idea that everything is about him all the time, is very resistant to change. And it's a sign that in the future, if you want something to be about you, which all relationships should be, they should be 50-50. You should have some give and take. Your partner should care about you and your well-being. This is a sign that this person may not be able to think and act in that way because everything is all about them. If they don't get their way, then this can lead to angry, immature reactions that sometimes can be violent. The next thing is that the partner may abuse drugs and alcohol. So again, this is just a way of dealing with their problems. It is not necessarily a sign of abuse. A lot of abusers of drugs and alcohol turn inward instead of outward and may abuse themselves or withdraw from society. Abusers may abuse drugs and alcohol and use this as an excuse for their actions, saying like, oh, I was drunk, I didn't really mean to hit you. Or, hey, I was on drugs, I didn't mean to be so emotionally protective of you. In fact, this is just one of their self-centered excuses for their behavior, but it may go hand in hand and often does. So it's something to watch out for. And in fact, in Nellie's case, this was something that she mentioned her partner being engaged with. He was drinking very heavily and dealing with drugs. The next thing is he pressures you for sex. So, of course, in any relationship, sex is a conversation that should be consensual and should be something that both partners are able to engage in a consensual way. However, in an abusive relationship, one partner is constantly pressuring the other for sex and uses it as a form of control and oftentimes validation, such as, oh, if she has sex with me, then it means that she must like me enough to say that my actions are okay, to say that she forgives me, for example. Or it's a justification of their own sexual prowess that shows them in their mind that they are powerful, that they are on top of the world, that they are in this position of control and power dynamic, which is what a lot of abusive relationships come down to. And again, this is something that came up in Nellie's story. Towards the end of her story, her abuser was pressuring her for sex and saying, oh, it'll only be this one time, etc., etc. She was luckily able to escape, but a lot of the times this abusive relationship can turn into rape or physical violence associated with sex. So it's something to watch out for in the early stages as well. Finally, the abuser will often intimidate when he's angry. So instead of being angry and turning in on themselves or withdrawing or even just having a conversation and being able to settle down, the abuser will often use his anger to start intimidating the other person so that he can get his way. Because again, everything is about him, his feelings, his ability to always win in these relationships. So again, watch out for these signs. If this is a relationship that you are in, pay attention to Nellie's story. I encourage you to watch the Orange Couch Conversations yourself. It's a great course and really helps put it in perspective of how these relationship dynamics can evolve very quickly. Nellie began her story by saying, I loved this man, and all of a sudden he changed. He became a different person. If you go into a relationship looking for these signs, then oftentimes it can give you a little bit more warning if you might be in a relationship with someone who has abusive tendencies. So I just wanted to first react to the Orange Couch Conversation video with Nellie, and also some of the signs that you may be in a relationship with a future abuser, because in the relationship with Nellie, what really spoke to me was this kind of transition period that she found that was so surprising to her, going from somebody that she was in a relationship with that she was enjoying to somebody who all of a sudden was abusive, controlling, manipulative, and eventually extremely dangerous. Thank you.